And good afternoon, racing fans. Welcome to Hawthorne Racecourse for a Thursday afternoon of thoroughbred action. Jim Miller and Emily Gullikson down here in our new studio. And Emily, it looks good. We're both wearing black today. We didn't even coordinate wardrobes or anything, but I'll tell you, it kind of pops with the background behind us.
It does, and I don't know if you noticed this, but we coordinated yesterday. We were also both in gray. We don't even talk about it, but that's very odd.
When we coordinate with picks, we do well.
That is true.
So maybe wardrobe will be a nice hookup as well for that today. It's a beautiful day for racing here at Hawthorne. Across the country, it's rough because you do have those Canadian forest fires that are working their way down to the East Coast. So no Belmont today. Woodbine is not racing today. Delaware is not racing today. Charlestown canceled. Penn National canceled. So right now, Belterra is in their card. Horseshoe Indianapolis is in their card, and then it'll be us, and that's basically it on the thoroughbred end of things. So we're going to stagger with Horseshoe Indianapolis throughout the course of the afternoon. It's a really good card there. They just bet $500,000 on race number 2, so congratulations to them, and hopefully we have some big handle numbers today as well.
I hope so too. I hope people don't normally have Hawthorne on their radar to give us a chance, because we're going to go through and talk about the Belmont. I handicapped the Belmont card both for Friday and Saturday, did all the stakes races, and I get as excited handicapping those races as ours. So, I think sometimes it's just what's on your radar and what you get used to playing. And when people see our product, yesterday we had some good hits and some playable races, and I think today is much of the same.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we got 3 races on the grass today, some really good turf races too. But before we jump into our card, the Saturday Stakes spotlight is the Belmont Stakes, and rightfully so. It's a really good race there. It's the 12th race from Belmont Park on a great card. The big question is what's going to happen, because they did cancel today. They canceled for training. Hopefully everything clears out, Emily, by the time you get to the Belmont card on Saturday. But you see there a 9-horse field for the Belmont Stakes goes as race number 12. Post time right around 6 o'clock Central Time for us. Let's start with the favorite there, Emily, the 6 FORTE, the horse that was likely to be the favorite in the Kentucky Derby. They scratched right late there, morning of for the Derby, so it's one of those things where FORTE skips the Preakness, comes back here for the Belmont. What do you make of FORTE in the Belmont?
Yeah, I think we have to kind of start there. I mean, we approach the favorites pretty much in every race, whether you're playing live or handicapping, assessing the favorite, right? And whether you want to beat this horse, and you take even a more critical stance. And as an individual, he does tend to check the boxes, right? He's proven on class. Distance is an unknown for all the horses, but speed figure wise, he fits. Todd Pletcher has a good record in this race. They're probably, regardless of what was going to happen in the Derby, the Preakness would have been kind of up in the air, and then they point towards the Belmont. But there are some questions in between with that scratch and, where this horse is in his form and if there is something wrong. That being the one knock, because I did try to go against him, but it was hard to find an alternative, so I just think he kind of fits from that perspective.
Sure.
But there are some concerns, whether you want to take a short price or not or single all your action on him. Probably not my approach, but I'm not as negative on him as I thought I would be going into this.
Well, we always talk about race value, and that's going to be the question here, is if FORTE is going to provide any value or not. If 5-2, maybe. And the question marks are the reason why. So you have the scratch from the Derby. You don't run in the Preakness. You have kind of a little bit of a race regression that we talked about leading up to the Derby there, as my air is popping out. So I'm going to drop that out of my ear. But we had a little bit of just regression leading into the Kentucky Derby. So we thought in an 18 to 20 horse field, there wasn't going to be a whole lot of value in there. 9-horse field, you never know. So FORTE is a horse that definitely does check a lot of the boxes. Going to be the favorite there in the Belmont Stakes, but there's so many others to talk about. So the horse I liked is the 8. That's Angel of Empire. This is the horse that did run in the Kentucky Derby. Ended up going off as the 4-1 favorite in there. And you know what? Probably deservedly so, just off the way the horse had run those recent starts. I thought ran a pretty respectable race in the Derby. I like that they skipped the Preakness and come to this spot. I think Angel of Empire actually will probably be the second choice in here and maybe push for favoritism a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with in terms of how the public's going to react. And I think kind of the same thing in the Derby is he sort of defaulted towards the favorite. Right. It wasn't so much that people were, loving him, but he just kind of felt like the safest option, the right way to go, just those number-wise, and probably the same thing in here. I'm not sold on him at all. I think maybe he's a little bit peaked in terms of his form cycle. Adding the blinkers is always questionable when a horse has been running their races and running well. That was kind of the knock on Rocket Can going into the Derby. And Angel of Empire has that here, and he did have the favorable race flow in his favor, and he had kind of every chance to win and didn't. So when he's going to be a short price, I do have some questions. I had some questions going into the Derby. and I would kind of play against him as one of the shorter priced horses in here.
All right, so we talk about you want to beat at some shorter prices. I liked Angel of Empire in here, but when you look to some longer prices, let's talk first, I guess, about the 7. That's Hit Show. This is another Brad Cox trainee. He's got 3 in this race. Hit Show, I thought, ran a really good race actually in the Derby. The horse had the inside draw, so I had to work against that a little bit. Was kind of up in the race flow a little bit. Wasn't too far out of it. Was one of the really, aside from Two Phils, the only other horse that kind of ran on in the lane. And I do think you're going to get every bit of the 10-1 on a horse that has at least raced well in New York with a couple of races at Aqueduct. What do you make of Hit Show?
You know, I'm also kind of negative on him, and not for any reason other than like when you know, as an individual, you bring up all the points that make sense, but when you look at it in terms of a race shape, I don't think this race necessarily sets up for him as well. And maybe he is a price, you know, the 10-1 being square, but I've seen a few people kind of pick him and gravitate in that direction. So it'll be kind of interesting because I think people are kind of looking for alternatives outside Forte and Angel of Empire, trying to get creative. Maybe they land on Hit Show. I just don't think the race shape sets up for him that well today, but again, I respect everything he's done as an individual.
All right, so you talk about prices, and a horse that you mentioned to me was the 1. That's TAPIT Shoes. Now, TAPIT Shoes is a horse that's 20-1 in the morning line. It's kind of considered the 3rd Brad Cox horse in the race. And you're talking about the 3rd Brad Cox horse. This is a horse that does have some ability. A little bit more lightly raced when it comes to stakes company, but this is a horse that maybe steps up at the right time, at least at a huge price.
Yeah, that's kind of the way. It's a legitimate stab because he hasn't been class tested. He is lightly raced, doesn't have as much of the foundation and even intent, right? Because it would appear that Hit Show, Angel of Empire, are the more fancied for this barn, and then this one, like, why not take a shot? But it's a lightly raced horse. It's an improving type horse, and just watching him visually, he's not super impressive class-wise, but he just kind of grinds, and from the inside post, maybe he's just happened to be there late, you know, and in terms of stamina, coming into this race fresh. And again, he's a lightly raced improving type. The Bathhouse Row Stakes, now it's not a graded stakes race, but the $200,000 purse is comparable to a grade 3. It's the same purse as the Peter Pan. So, and there's quality, right? Red Route 1 comes out of that race, and those races can be pretty competitive out of Oaklawn Park. So, you know, why not take a shot with at least the horse? I feel like everybody in this field, I sort of know who they are. And this one, it's kind of like I sort of know who he is, and he's not that far off, and maybe just takes a fresh horse.
And when you have the big unknown of the 1.5 miles, anything can happen. So it's one of those things where you may want to look around a little bit. Now, the 2 TAPIT Trice is kind of considered the other Pletcher in this spot. But TAPIT Trice was very highly regarded going into the Kentucky Derby. There was a good win in the Bluegrass. A pretty good win in the Tampa Bay Derby, and then the Kentucky Derby I thought ran okay. I actually expected even a little bit more. I thought with the way the pace setup was, the horse should have come on and run a little bit more in the lane. Got beat almost 10 lengths in that spot. I thought 3-1 was a little short in the line for TAPIT Trice.
Yeah, that is the big knock, it is the price, because he is a horse that can be hit or miss. We've talked about a lot when doing these analysis, just how many races he hasn't looked like a winner, and then, you know, was the winner. Maybe he was just best. Kind of the company lines he was running against, some of those races are a little bit questionable. But they've always pointed to this race. I know a lot of people have kind of pegged him as a Belmont type horse from early on. So they're getting that chance. Should have plenty of pace to run into. Should probably get the right race complexion too, because not necessarily going to be fast, but maybe a little bit congested, and that will assist a horse like TAPIT Trice with that big long stride to just get free in the clear and do his thing.
So it's amazing. We've gone through 5 horses out of the 9 in the Belmont. We haven't even talked about the Preakness winner yet. That's the 4 National Treasure. Now, National Treasure was a horse I liked in the Preakness, but we even talked about leading up to that race. We didn't think the Preakness was going to be overly tough. It wasn't a great field. It wasn't a great race by any means, but National Treasure was the horse that prevailed in the end. Figures to show some speed in here. I guess the question is, does TAPIT Shoes go, does El Miracolo go, or does National Treasure out there in the front end, and can the horse make the 1.5 miles just 3 weeks after a tough fought victory?
Yeah, I mean, I think all those things are the question again, and coming off that favorable trip, but, you know, he's going to be out in front, and we'll see how the race day plays. Sometimes that favors horses. We'll see, you know, just with the weather conditions, maybe not being behind horses is to a benefit, and that would move a horse like National Treasure up, because with some of these horses we mentioned, or you just said, maybe they're going to press, maybe they're not, but we know
Right,
for
we don't
sure
know,
they're
yeah.
going to. This guy's going to go.
Yeah,
Like
he has
that
to.
much we know. We
Yep.
know he's going to go. So at least you have that known. But again, it could be a little bit shorter than that 5-1 morning line, which I think would probably be fair odds, but probably is going to be a little bit shorter, just coming off the Preakness win and the Baffert factor.
Yeah, next to him is the 3 Arcangelo, and this was the horse that comes out of the prep, which was the Peter Pan into this spot. So last race on May the 13th, it was a pretty good effort there. Rally got up, had to kind of fight all the way through the lane, but was the horse that prevailed in the end. Now you're going from 1 1/8 to 1.5 miles. I think this was kind of that wise guy horse a little bit because it came out of the prep. I don't know what we're going to get price-wise on this runner.
Yeah, kind of like you said, probably has that wise guy feel.
Yeah.
And this will be the first start around 2 turns and does have to step up as well in terms of class. Pulling up replay, I just remember going back, the horse that he beat that day, Bishop's Bay, I believe.
Bay, yep.
Yeah, it was a horse I haven't been a fan of, kind of, getting some flattered trips and speed figures along the way. So I thought he was vulnerable in that spot, and ARCANGELO took advantage of that. So we're going to have to see. He's going to step up. One I could certainly make a case for, but value's going to be the key. And I'm going to do a nice little segue here because when ARCANGELO debuted, Steven and I were actually doing a pool party.
Yeah.
And this horse came on my radar because I had watched him at the sales and watched him train. It was one of those, like, as I've talked about handicapping maiden races, is you want the new face, you want the horses that have run, and this guy fit as the new face, showing a lot of run, and probably should have won that debut. So we made a good sized bet on him at the pool party, and he ran out. So he's always been been a horse that has ability. But like I said, that segue, because we do have a pool party coming up.
You do have a pool party coming up. At pool parties, there's snacks. And the only reason I mention snacks is because I glanced to my left on FanDuel TV, and they're passing out snacks on the set. So I'm not quite sure what's going on over there. But if they're tuning in, I want to find out the details as they're going around. But we do have that pool party coming up on Saturday. It's going to be you. It's going to be Jordan, Jane, and you're going to be given a bankroll to play with. You're going to try to make some money for everybody. But the cool thing about the pool party is you get in, you get some food, you get some drink, you get a part of the betting pool there, and you try to make some money. But it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you get to, interact with your community, which a lot of times we don't get a chance to do, especially here. Everything's kind of spread out all over the place, and this is just a great opportunity. We know everybody's going to pay attention to the Belmont Stakes Day, big race card. Jordan's exceptional. I'm really excited to collaborate with Jordan. Both he and I do a lot of homework behind the scenes, and both he and I putting in that homework, we tend to focus, maybe have our emphasis on some different things.
Sure.
So I don't think there's going to be a single horse that day that's going to sneak under our radar. It's just going to come down to how lucky we get in terms of betting, because I think both he and I tend to be a little bit aggressive as well.
Yeah, but that's what it comes up to,
Yeah.
and we know how that can work. Sometimes it can work very well. We were very aggressive when we covered the card from Oaklawn Park, and we had a lot of success there. But if anybody wants to check things out, you can always go to our website, HawthorneRacecourse.com, and find out all of the details. All right, we're going to throw the field up one more time here for the Belmont Stakes for that field of 9. Emily, the way I'm going to look at this race, I'm going to put the 8, actually, Angel of Empire, on top. I'm going to follow it up with Hit Show. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do after that just yet, and I may just want to see the board to see how it plays. If you're looking, what kind of horses at least are you going to focus on, or see where some value may come from?
Yeah, if I'm playing anything exotic, I will obviously use TAPIT shoes. Probably, have that horse included, because you'd hate to, make a case for a long shot and then be like, oh, I thought you'd run second or third, and then he wins. So going in that direction, Red Route 1, another one as far as underneath. As far as, FORTE, probably gonna have to use, just because I'm a little bit negative on Angel of Empire, so maybe can find some value on FORTE, especially if he's, sticks at the morning line. But a race I'm probably gonna spread, and then, narrow it down a little bit more, just seeing how the track's playing, and obviously the board.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. I mean, you and I are looking at the same race, and you can see things a little bit differently in the end. That's the cool thing about playing the horses, playing horse racing and that, and just kind of taking all the opinions, all the information that you get, and then developing your own opinion for how you want to play the race.